The female and the male lovers stand as equals with no psychological anxieties about purity and decency. A man sings of his beloved beauty and declares his wish to approach her. A woman passionately sings of her longing for her chosen one, whom her mother might not approve of. Another man despairs of even reaching the woman of his affection. A woman struggles with her desires for her beloved, and a man on the other side exalts in seeing his beloved but chafes at being separated from her. And after 7 days of separation, a man publicly declares that he is sickened and he insists that she can only cure him. Derived from Obenga 2004 at 598. The sheer openness of songs, the unabashed willingness to expose the depths of desires, and the frankness between lovers yield a conception of passionate desire that aims for sexual pleasure and satisfaction. The brother in quotes and sister in quotes terms of endearment reference not to an incestuous relationship but a relationship of equality and belongingness that approximates that of siblings. It appears that in the matricentric ideology of ancient Egypt, in which sons and daughters were equally valued, the society held up the sibling equality relationship as a model for intimate, loving relationship. A widely view held within the Western intellectual tradition is that philosophizing about sex began in ancient Greece, whereby they defined eroticism as sexual desire or libidinal passion. Eros was the Greek male god of love and sexual desire, who overthrew his mother, who was called Aphrodite, who was the goddess of love, beauty, and sexual rapture, to become the personification of love, creative power, and harmony. That the sun became the purveyor of sensuality and sexual desire and fertility, and the force that propels individuals to actualize their wholeness is hardly surprising. Hey, how are you doing, viewers and listeners? As always, I'm your host with the most, they call me Timothy, and this is just a podcast. And today, we want to talk about Osunality. As you've heard, Osunality is the African sexuality, the way as Africans we perceive of sexuality. So, Osunality is a dynamic, dialectical force that sets up dualistic relationships of actuality and potentially in the cycle of life and death, as well as rich and complex dualities in women's sexual identity, which deepens their persona to include maternal figure and paramour, home builder and courtesan, confidant and gossip, drawer of children, the igniter of sexual or osunic fire, Òsun's honey, and the good things it portends are offered to partners in order to build communities through birth of children and to build harmony through intimacy and bonding. In short, African sexuality in an African perspective was for recreation, not like the Western perspective where they viewed sexuality as a matter of pleasure. As we can confirm and refer to the Yoruba culture, the Yoruba ontology, similar to other ancient African ontologies, it seems to emphasize the fertility of a sexual pleasure and satisfaction. That sexuality appears hidden, concealed, or glossed over is because the philosophical grammar of the ontologies is becoming lost to the modern Africans who are disengaging from the indigenous world views. The Òsun is constituted by two principles, which makes up the Osunality, which is sexuality and fertility, and an elaborate sequence of processes. The former principle yields sexual pleasure, and the latter it yields children. Constructed as a female divinity to function as a mnemonic device, Òsun, like other female deities of fertility all over Africa, authorize and reinforces female sexuality without negating male sexuality. These forces are not simply guardians of fertility, but also theoretical articulations of sexuality and fertility processes. And thus, It relocates to an African ontological scheme and examination of its foundational beliefs to Africans, which highlights the sexuality component as well as different picture of sexual desire and passion. Osunality is deemed as a personal and social good. Sexual fulfillment is highly valued by families and communities because it produces a well-adjusted system to individuals. Thank you for being a keen listener. This was the 3rd episode of African Sexuality, and this is just a podcast. And as always, I'm your host with the most. They call me Timothy. For more of these episodes, go to our YouTube channel or our Spotify channel, subscribe, share, and click the notification bell for frequent updates. This is the 3rd episode, 7 more to go. I hope you will benefit as much as I am benefiting. This is Timothy signing out. Until next time.